So have you ever wondered to yourself, is this investing thing overcomplicated? Am I overthinking it? Wouldn't it be better to maybe just drop my money into an S&P 500 index fund and call it a day? Why should I pay a financial advisor thousands or maybe even tens of thousands of dollars when I should let the S&P 500 take care of me, keep things simple, and not worry about it? It's a legitimate question, and today we're going to think about and spend some time talking about a few reasons you might want to consider before you pursue such a simplified strategy. Hi, I'm John Norberg, and welcome to the Financial Prof series. So, a few things that I want to take you through that before you pursue such a strategy like that, you might want to consider, especially if you're thinking about working with an advisor versus doing it yourself. And there's nothing inherently wrong with either strategy. A lot of people have had a lot of success with both ends or both sides of that coin. But today I want to take you through 5 reasons that you might want to consider working with a financial advisor rather than going it alone, and specifically why you might want to consider something other than the simplified approach of just doing the S&P 500. So let's get started. The first reason is diversification, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, it's an eggs in one basket type of thing, right? We don't want all of our eggs to crack if one sector of the market goes under. And right now, the S&P 500 is very heavily weighted towards technology. The last time it looked like this was back in the early 2000s. We were getting ready to head into the dot-com bust, but at the height of the bubble, the S&P 500 was actually made up of approximately 32% information technology stocks. And then less than a year and a half later, you look at the S&P 500 again, and that had dropped to 18%. In other words, almost in half, which I think demonstrates pretty well the real downside of under-diversification. Another example, if we look at the present day, we're kind of in a similar boat again. The S&P 500 has about 32% of its current holdings considered information technology, but that doesn't really tell the whole story, right? And the reason is because if we look at what actually makes up the S&P 500, there are stocks like Meta and Google that were recently reclassified out of IT and into a new class called communications. And there were a few other companies that this happened to just last year, like Visa and PayPal and MasterCard, that were considered IT or information technology that got pulled out of that category again, and they were classified as financial services. So when you look at it, if you were to reclassify those companies back as information technology, as most people would probably consider them to be, then we're getting at close to half of the S&P 500 being in that information technology realm. So it is a diversified index because it has 500 or so of the largest stocks across many diverse industries here in the United States. But because of the way it's weighted, it is over half, well, sorry, not over half, but almost half, if we consider those original companies I just mentioned to be IT, on that growth technology-oriented stock allocation. The reason this is important is if you look at what happened in the early 2000s with the dot-com bust, that sector dropped dramatically. Even just a couple years ago, in 2022, we saw a similar situation where the high-flying tech stocks that had done so well in the pandemic era had their comeuppance. And the concern is if we see another downturn in tech like that again, that people who don't realize how undiversified certain parts of the S&P 500 really are, that being in an S&P 500 fund could in fact cost you more than you might have imagined. Reason number 2, tax planning. This is a big one, right? An S&P 500 fund isn't typically going to do your tax planning for you. But working with a financial advisor, that's where a lot of value can be added that save real hard dollars potentially on your tax bill. A couple of examples that I use quite frequently are Roth conversions, the cash balance plan implementations for my business owner clients, using the Augusta rule to use your home as a way to write off potentially certain parts of your income, or real estate professional status. We just did a video on this one just a little while ago as well. If you have a spouse perhaps that they could qualify for that, and using that element of the tax code, write off significant chunks of income. These are elements, certain parts of tax planning, and all of them might not be right for you, but there's a good chance that working with a financial advisor, finding value in tax planning is going to be a huge part of how you team together to get closer to those goals. Reason number 3, a life change. Now, obviously, this could be anything, but a lot of the time we see people come to us when there's a significant chapter change in their life, right? Whether it's a career change and they're taking that next significant step up on their career trajectory, or founding a business. I just had someone reach out to me this past week, and it happens with some frequency. They're at a point in life where they're starting a business and they have a lot of questions about what they're going to do and how to make sure that they are well prepared for the unexpected as well as the expected. And really what it comes down to is a lot of people who've never worked with a financial advisor at that time have questions, and they come to us and we can help answer those questions. Or maybe they have a financial advisor, and maybe this is you, maybe it's not, but they've realized that it's not going to be the same person who helped them get there that's going to also help them get to where they're going. In other words, they've done great for them, but what's gotten you here isn't going to get you there. Reason number 4, this kind of ties in with reason number 3, the distribution phase. So another point in life where a lot of people come to us and engage our services is when they're getting ready to retire. Huge life change, right? And that's when we're usually starting to distribute from our portfolio rather than add to it. In this case, distributions can be an extraordinarily important part of how resilient your portfolio is. A quick example, if you had a portfolio that, let's say you got started with the distribution phase, in other words, retired and started drawing money off of it in the beginning of 2000, the year 2000, right? And let's just say for reasonability that you took off 5% per year, usually a fairly reasonable distribution depending on your portfolio, and you took 5% off of that portfolio that was invested just in the S&P 500 for the next 30 years. Well, the fact is, you probably would have run out of money sometime in about 2018. And that's called sequence of return risk, because the early stages of our returns and what we're pulling out at the same time dictate so much of our future success. If markets are good in the beginning, great, we should be all right. But if markets are way down like they were in the early 2000s, then that could completely hobble our future ability to not have to go back to work or to not have to find other means of generating income. So the distribution phase is a huge part of where financial planning and a good financial advisor can come into play. If you had that S&P 500 fund, it would still be doing its thing, but we would have run out of money. So, reason number 5, wrapping it up here, time, right? It's our only truly limited asset. Everything else, you can make more money, you can make more things, but the one thing you can't make more of is time. People sometimes forget this when they realize one day in their lives that I've been spending a lot of time on my financial management, and this is a piece of my duty, of my responsibilities, that I'd like to team up with somebody on, to be able to have more time back in my day. And that could be things like using that time to spend on your business, or with your kids, or perhaps your grandchildren, or maybe fulfilling the bucket list that you've always had. But if you continued to keep things the way they are and nothing ever changed, you wouldn't really have much spare time to do those things that are important to you. So again, reason number 5, time. So if any of these reasons appeal to you, or if you're taking a look at your financial strategy and thinking, you know what, maybe I do want to work with somebody to see what am I missing or where I can implement some efficiencies and some new strategies, Norberg Wealth Management is currently accepting new clients, and we also have a lot of other good YouTube videos that talk a little bit about some of the things that we've mentioned here in this video. So feel free to check out our channel, go ahead and subscribe and like if you can, and in the meantime, I'll see you out there.